is known as a culture meat, clean meat, and cellular meat, which the muscle tissue that's taken from the animal stem cells and grown in vitro instead of from slaughtered animals. It is biologically exactly the same as the meat tissues that comes from a cow. Culture meat is produced using many of the same tissue engineering techniques traditionally used in regeneration medicine. Culture meat also not considered vegan, as the ingredients needed to produce the synthetic meat are all derived from animals. Now, let's see details about the lab-grown meat from our friends.
The demand of meat is going to increase. The Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations estimates that the demand for meat is going to increase by more than 2/3 in the next 40 years, and current production methods are not sustainable. In the near future, both meat and other staple foods are likely to become more expensive. Next is environmental problem. Around a quarter of the greenhouse gas emissions that are driving up temperatures are estimated to have come from agriculture. Beef production is considered the worst offender, with cattle emitting methane and nitrous oxide from their manures, but also from their digestive processes. Because of this impact, scientists have in recent years to develop meat that can grow in lab or in the factories.
So, what are the impacts of lab-grown meat towards environment? It causes greenhouse gas emission. Lab-grown meat produces less greenhouse gases. Based on current published figures and research, complete replacement of conventional meat with culture meat would result in 78 to 98% reduction in greenhouse gas emission. However, the production of lab-grown meat releases carbon dioxide, which will have greater long-term effect than the methane and nitrous oxide. Next, for the land use, culture meat helps reduces most environmental impact of livestock production. Land released from livestock farming can be used for providing environmental service and benefits wildlife conservation. The conversion of grassland into forest and arable land is to produce energy crops for biofuel. Then, for water use, a half kilo of normal meat requires more than 2,400 gallons compared to just 25 gallons of water for lab-grown meat. A study published in Environmental Science and Technology stated that lab-grown meat used only 82 to 96% of water. Moving on to the energy use. In a study published by scientists from Oxford and Amsterdam University, they estimate that culture meat required 7 to 45% less energy to produce than the same normal meat. Next, the impact towards health. It consists of pros and cons, and the pros is culture meat would be produced in sterile environment. They would be free from dangerous bacteria. While for the cons, the use of antibiotics in food-producing animal is to fight disease and help the animal grow faster, but it is dangerous to human. Presence of heme iron can cause DNA damage and are potent carcinogen. Heme iron intake increases risk of breast and colon cancer. Lastly, the impacts toward agricultural is in farming industry. Farmer will be able to focus more on naturality and quality. They will be able to reduce their overall management cost of their farm. They can also reduce their livestock sizes and double down on maintaining their select few herds.
Culture meat will likely be exposed to the public on a global scale in the coming years, making consumer acceptance of the product is an important concern. During the whole process in the production of lab-grown meat, many aspects need to be particular in terms of hygiene, safety ingredients including the chemicals and bacteria used, its nutritional characteristics, and lastly halal, since Malaysia is a Muslim country. Nevertheless, it is currently unknown how this cultured meat will be received in the worldwide market. As a consumer, we have to raise a great awareness of the risk, and also must be suspicious of the long-term effect on consuming this human engineered food, because too often people jump into the excitement of new discovery and find the water is deeper than they anticipated. Next is the government's role. Government must follow the regulatory that has been made. It is necessary to decide who will regulate the safety and standardization of these products. For instance, prior to being available for sale, the European Union and Canada will require approved novel food application. Additionally, the European Union requires that cultured animal product and production must prove safety by an approved company application, which became effective as of 1 January 2003. Within the United States, the FDA, which is Food and Drug Administration, and the USDA, United States Department of Agriculture, have agreed to jointly regulate the cultured meat. So under this agreement, the FDA oversees cell collection, cell banks, and cell growth and differentiation, while the USDA oversees the production and labeling of human food products derived from the cells.
Assalamualaikum. Hi, my name is Adila binti Amri. Now I would like to present about how industry solve the problem. The typical medium for serpentine cell culture is called FBF, fetal bone serum, which contains fetal cow blood. Its price point range but is around $84.50 per 50 ml. 50 ml of serum will make that many burger. FBS is too pricey to produce a $4 burger to compete with the other burgers on the market. They have been able to get the cost of SBF medium down to the $42.50 per 55 ml, but it is too expensive to hit the market. Researchers have attempts to reduce the use of ABS by 50% or more. Medium are normally 10% ABS, as they are trying medium of 2 to 5% FBS, which is significantly reduce the cost at the cost of the cell growing at a slower rate. The current solution is to save the money on the medium and jeopardize cell growth rate. One of the possible alternative is NCS, newborn cow serum, since it's 80% less expensive. However, its downside is that it's not work as SBS, since it's a lot more immunogenic. There are 3 ways to start out going to combat this problem. First is make SBS more cheaper. Second is find a plant-based alternative for SBS. Third is expand cell culture life so they can grow in a more immunogenic medium. Thank you.
Next, we proceed to the method required in the processing of lab-grown meat, also called in vitro meat or artificial meat. Here the steps involved. Firstly, it requires a cell source that can proliferate indefinitely and also differentiate into the functional skeletal muscle tissue. Secondly, the cells need to be embedded in a 3D matrix that allows for muscle growth. Lastly, the muscle cells need to be conditioned in a bioreactor to get measured. At the end of my presentation, I will share with you a short video of the steps. It is a concept in which edible animal tissues can be produced by culturing through tissue engineering techniques. Here we have 2 techniques. First, scaffold-based technique and self-organizing technique. For the scaffold-based technique, this technique has been achieved in which at the end of the process, the product produced like a ground meat product, which is the meat produced in a wheat structure. And for the second technique, the self-organizing technique, the further studies should be done. It is because the cells become necrotic and the highly structured meats will not be possible to produce.
But how exactly does one grow meat in a lab? The process isn't as weird as you might think. Currently, the most successful method involves harvesting stem cells from cows. Stem cells are the building blocks of essentially everything, from muscles to organs, from which muscle tissue is harvested from the live animal in what is said to be a harmless, painless procedure. The tissue is made up of muscle and fat cells, which the scientists separate from one another. What we need are the muscles, which are then dissected and cultured. Cell culturing is where a cell is removed from a plant or animal and then put into a favorable artificial environment, usually some type of substrate that supplies essential nutrients like amino acids and carbohydrates to grow. All it takes is just one singular muscle stem cell to grow up to 1 trillion muscle cells. The newly grown muscle cells naturally merge together to form tiny myotubes, which are then placed in a ring. The muscle cell's tendency to contract frequently causes them to grow into a small strand of muscle tissue. The muscle tissue tubes are then layered together to form a hamburger shape. One muscle cell has the potential to turn into 1 trillion muscle tissue strands, which is a lot of burgers. The lab-grown hamburgers don't quite look like normal hamburgers and are much paler in color and blander in taste. But as scientists point out,
there are certain issues that need to be considered in lab-grown meat. Animals still have to be used in the production of culture meat, even in fewest number. Consequently, lab-grown meat still involves animal exploitation, which is what the proponent of artificially grown meat want to avoid. Next, raise numerous ethical and religious questions. For example, Muslim consumers need to confirm whether lab-grown meat is halal and complies with Islamic laws before consuming it. Why for the Hindu consumers, they will wonder what to do if there is no animal available for ritual practices. Scientific authors recognize the potential ethical benefits of lab-grown meat, which are resources used, foodborne illness, and also nutrient-related disease.
As currently produced, there is ethical concern to bear in mind. Thus far, most cell-based meat has used fetal bovine serum, which is calf fetus blood, in its growing medium, which raise some serious ethical concerns. Some scholars have pointed to ways in which animals can be wronged without being harmed. It might be said that even though no individual animals are harmed in the process of in vitro, they are in fact disrespected. Although lab-grown meat will be animal-friendly as no animals will be harmed, it has few ethical issues and currently not affordable for everyone, and has high production costs, as the production cost of cultured meat in a lab is expensive compared to the amount of meat it can produce.